channel Walking in My Faith. My name is Lisha. In this channel, I mostly share my experience after having given my life over to God and what's been happening. And I'm sure, like a lot of people who know me, have been wondering why I changed my mind about getting married. So I just want to share the lessons I received from God before getting married that really shifted me into getting married, because for a very long time I didn't want to nor think that I was going to get married, only because I was looking at marriage from a worldly viewpoint, and I was afraid of getting divorced because of what happens when people are divorcing each other. You hear all sorts of stories about, would see how people can be so hateful and threatening. A person went from, I want to give you the moon, the stars, the heaven and the earth, to I hate you, you go to hell, I want you nothing but death for you. Like, I just didn't want to experience that in life, because like women talk about how devastated they are, not knowing how to pick up the pieces of their life or what happened and where it all went wrong and stuff like that. So I just didn't want to be one of those people who were left destitute wondering, how did I get here? Right? So it was a matter of, and also I kind of had also a weird way about independence and people doing things for themselves. I would watch my mom do a whole lot of things for my dad and be like, oh, never could be me, girl. Like, this man don't have no hands for himself. Like, how? Why? Did you leave the house with the pots so he couldn't cook while you were gone? Really? Like, sit. All right, no. But now that I'm married, I realize a lot of the things that my mom was saying is true. You kind of choose willingly, joyfully, to do all of these things, and I'm finding myself in that situation right now, but only because I also came into it, or more so I would say guided into it. Now I see a lot of videos online about how God found me my spouse and anything like and everything like that, and it encouraged me to think that maybe God could find me my spouse. And I can't dismiss that. I can definitely say God guided me into knowing the right spouse who would complement certain characteristics of myself. When I was 25 years old, I made a list of the kind of man I want to be with. After God sort of taught me his intention for marriage, we revisited my list, because there were things on my list that I had on there, like I want a man who's romantic. And in that conversation, when I was having it with God, it was like, so you want a man who's romantic? Okay, what is romance? Where did you learn this romance from? This romantic thing? And I was like, romantic is a guy who buys flowers, who takes you out to dinner, who surprises you with chocolates, opens the door, things you've seen in movies. And there's like, yeah, that's the problem. You're influenced by the things you've seen in movies and are actually expecting that to be the reality. But this is the thing, that person has seen all of those things in movies. Everybody refers to that as romantic, and everybody does that when they want to be romantic, which is really not romantic if you really think about it, right? Because romance is on a spectrum. There are people who don't like flowers, there are people who are allergic to chocolate. They don't think it's chivalrous for a man to open doors. There's so many things that can come out of why he shouldn't open the door and I should walk in first and he should walk in first and all of these things. But when he was teaching me about romantic, it's stupid for me to want a person who's romantic, because he can show 50 other girls romance the same time he's showing me, right? I don't want someone who's romantic. You want someone who is thoughtful and considerate. Someone who's thoughtful would be automatically romantic, because they will be consistently thinking of you. Like my husband goes, there are consistently so many things that he does that I'm like, boy, look at you. This is you. Wow. Okay. You didn't have to be told or nothing. Man. Okay. And it's all because he's thoughtful and he knows me and he knows the little things that I like, the little things that irritate me, that make a difference. You know what I mean? And because he's so thoughtful, so considerate, there is so many things that he has to think about, where he has to consider me and my feelings and how this is going to affect me. So what are you going to do with romantic? Exactly nothing. A person who brings flowers that are going to die, chocolate that's going to make you fat. There's no helpfulness in that. So yeah, so God taught me a lot of things. But one of the biggest things I think where our conversation kind of started was in Matthew 19, verse 11. Matthew 19, verse 11, where Jesus says, "Not everyone is mature enough to live a married life. It requires a certain aptitude and grace. Marriage isn't for everyone," right? And so it makes you think, but see, not everyone needs to be married, which is why Paul chose not to be married. And the conversation that I had with God at the end when I was entering into my marriage, when it finally came time for me to choose this, not only choose my husband, but to choose the covenant that I'm about to enter into. The biggest thing that I could say is that the teaching was of reflecting God's love. That's basically the assignment that he's giving you when you enter into marriage, is you have to reflect my love. You have to make sacrifices. You have to show unconditional love, faithfulness, trustworthiness. There's basically, you're going to have to display the fruits of the Spirit in your home. If you don't display the fruits of your Spirit, then you're not a godly person. Then you're not a godly woman. You're not a godly man. That's how we'll see where your fruits are, is in your home. And for me, it was like a few months before we got married, we were doing this fasting, and God kept putting these scenarios in front of me of sacrifices that I'd have to make, parts that I'd have to consider, things I never thought I'd have to do that I might have. Like, for instance, one of the things that I have a problem is control, right? I like to be in control. But when I'm getting married and submitting to my husband, it's a whole different thing. The scenario that he gave me, one of the scenarios that he gave me was, imagine that your husband made a decision that affected you in the biggest way. Like, for instance, if he decided to, or he made the choice to move the family somewhere because of a decision that he was making for something that he thought was going to be fruitful and was going to change your lives for the better. But then it goes off the rails and it goes very badly. And instead of going right, it goes wrong and puts you guys in a deep, deep hole, right? You cannot blame him and say, look at the decision you made. This is all your fault. You brought us here. I didn't want to come here. I told you this was a mistake, and all of these things. You cannot say that. You cannot say that. Are you willing to accept the negative of that decision as if you yourself made that decision? Right? And I thought, yeah, I'm going to have to basically allow this man to make decisions for me, and decisions that I might not be in full support of, but I have to support him in them. And if I won't be able to show support in that valley, God is right, I can't get married, And it actually kind of showed me that if I can't submit to God, if I can't submit to God's plan for my life, then there's no way that I'm going to be submitting to my husband. There's no way I can submit to my husband. So I had to submit to God first, fully saying, your plan for my life, even if it's marriage, even if the marriage, you can't promise me, because this is the conversation, is God, because of free will, he told me, I can't promise you a perfect marriage. You or him can choose to derail from my plan. I am teaching you, right? I'm teaching you my plan. You can choose to derail from the plan. You can choose to be a cheater, to be disrespectful, to do all these things. But I am holding you accountable to a certain standard. I don't care what he does. I won't say, oh yeah, my child, he cheated, so you cheated, which is justified. He disrespected you, so you disrespected him, so which is justified. He did this, which was sleazy, and then you did that for revenge, which is justified. No. He said to me, I'm holding you to a godly standard because you're choosing to be my child, you're entering my kingdom, and you want to represent me, right? And you have to represent me even when he's not representing me. You have to represent me even when it's not nice. So, are you willing, even when it's not nice? Are you willing to show unconditional love? Are you willing to sacrifice? Are you willing to humble yourself? Are you willing to be faithful? Because all of these are my characteristics and the characteristics that I call for. And I won't hold you accountable to the standard that I hold him accountable to. I'm going to hold you to a specific standard, right? As my child, as a child of God, I'm going to hold you to a standard of, this is the standard. If he disrespects you, what did you do,
right? I'm going to hold you accountable to your actions, not his actions leading your actions. I'm going to hold you accountable to all the decisions that you made within your marriage. Did you display my love? Did you show him my love? If you can't reflect my love, if you can't put yourself and stop being selfish, don't get married. And I was like, oh God, I want to be your representative. I want to represent you. I want to do something for the kingdom. And if it means that the only place that I get to do that is in my marriage, if the only thing that I ever do in life is my husband coming to you and saying, thank you, God, for giving me such a godly wife, such an amazing person who showed me your love. If that's the purpose that you created me for, be it. I'm mature, especially I'm mature enough. I feel I'm mature enough to handle such things. You know, emotional intelligence is very important in marriage because emotions go, anger goes, and I'm so glad that the Spirit always guides me. There are times when I want to shout at my husband like I'm shouting at my baby brother for leaving dishes in the sink, but the Spirit always be like, girl, don't even try. You have a choice. You're making the wrong one. You want to change the mood of the household. You want to take your husband out of a state of peace. You cannot talk to him with such disrespect. You're not talking to your roommate. You're not talking to a child. Do the dishes when. yeah, and I had to do the dishes, guys. Like I found myself doing dishes that I was rebuked for while I wanted to rebuke somebody else for them. But that's pretty much what it is. If you can't put yourself aside, don't get married. But one of the things that he taught me again of why he created marriage is both compassion and partnership. Not compassion, man. Companionship and partnership. In Genesis 2:18, it says, "It is not good for a man to be alone." When the Lord saw this, it was a matter of that you need support. You're always going to need support from somebody. And that might not be from marriage, but you're going to need some form of support from people around you, whether it be your friendships where you find support, whether it be in the people in the church where you find support. But a person really needs some type of companionship, some type of partnership. We need to support each other in some ways. Going through life alone is hard. I mean, it's hard going through life with somebody else, but going through life alone is I guess it's you who chooses which battle you would rather fight. The lonely fight is a battle on its own, and the married fights, because both. I mean, you're choosing which path you'd rather take. We're not all going to be married, and we're not all going to be single. So it's up to you which path you think would lead to your godly state the most, I think. Now that I'm actually thinking about it. And see, because it's not wrong to be single, right? And being single has its own challenges that you have to take, right? Being married has its own challenges. So you choose your battle, and then you have to show your godliness in that. You have to represent God with your all being in that. I think that's kind of like what it comes down to. The second thing I would say is unity and oneness. In Genesis 2:24, God talks about becoming one flesh. And when you think about that statement Adam makes of bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, it's not actually a statement. It's more like a declaration that he was making to his wife, as to say to Eve, as to say, anything that you are a piece of me, anything that happens to you is basically happening to me. Anything I do for myself, I'll be doing for you. Anything, you know what I mean? So I will always consider you as a part of me before I do anything. It's like the piece of me in a way, which is really important. Oneness is really important, or unity is really important in marriage. The Lord was showing me something in a way. He showed me it in a way of a demonic type of way, where he said, think about it as, while you guys are still people, you guys are filing for a marriage, license, your demons, his demons, your demons have come together to cause a merger. They're merging their campaigns together. Your demons know everything about you. His demons know everything about him, and they're about to share all this information. if you guys are not in a united front, if there are parts of you that are weak, that you are not aware of each other, you will definitely fall. And he talks about the two or three chords being stronger than one type of thing, because when you come together and he wraps around you as the third chord, he keeps you guys solid together. My advice to newlyweds that I definitely took myself, or as I was going into getting married, was I watched a lot of other couples. I watched the podcast, Dear Future Wifey. I watched Midred Kingsley and his and her husband talk a lot about their experiences. I watched so many podcasts. There was this one couple that was talking about certain seeds that they had, like how the enemy plants seeds with you guys to say, when with me he'll whisper, see, he doesn't appreciate you, he's not thoughtful, he's not thinking about you. There's there's no like legwork in anything that he does for you. And then the other one, the enemy was whispering, see, she doesn't appreciate anything you do for her, the little things that you do, she never noticed, she's taking you for granted, and all of these things. And it was causing a rift in their marriage until they realized, we see, this thing is actually breaking us apart. And now it's rooted deep in them that they feel resentment for each other. And I never want to get to that point where I feel so much resentment from my husband. So it was one of those things that I discussed with him to say, we need to be honest all the time, even when it hurts, with things that we're doing. So we have these monthly checkups on, how am I doing as a wife? How am I doing as a husband? Is there anything that you feel I can do even more to help the situation out, between making our bond a lot more stronger? And I don't think that there should be ever a time where I feel that something that I can't tell my husband. The enemy will definitely take that and run with it. So you never give the enemy an inch, even like a small part of your marriage. Don't even let him in through a crack. There must not be crack in your foundation. So like, follow a lot of married couples, watch a lot of programs about married people, or people who give advice on married people. Go before you get married. Something we did is we went to our pastor for a premarital counseling, because our pastor was the one who could establish whether we were at the mature level, whether we were mature enough to actually enter into marriage. And he equipped us with a lot of other things that maybe we were not aware of, like the uniqueness of our marriage, and that if our parents lived this life and his parents lived this life, we don't have to live those lives. We can come up with our own things. We don't have to compare ourselves with any other marriage, with anybody else. We literally can make our own new, completely type of marriage that's never been seen before. You know what I mean? But it's completely up to us. And then another thing was the procreation. Obviously, men and women, in order, what it was the first commandment that he gave, be fruitful and multiply, in Genesis 1:24, or the command, is it a blessing or a command? Either one. It needs two people. You can't do it by yourself. You can't be fruitful and multiplying by yourself. And we can also argue that there's children are more rounded, or they are better in two-parent households than single-parent households. But then again, there's nothing wrong with being a single-parent household, because even those children are well-rounded depending on how they are raised. There's so many factors. We can argue about that. It takes two to raise children type of situation, but that's the way God intended it, because there is something that a child needs from the mother, and there's something that a child needs from the father, and you as an individual cannot provide both. And then it became a sanctity and exclusivity type of thing. As much as our cultures like to dabble in polygamy, guys, marriage is emotional. Marriage is emotional. We can say we're happy in our polygamous situation, but I don't know. I've never... Pause. I don't want to say I've never been in a polygamous situation, because, okay, I've never been in a polygamous situation because I've never been married. But in all honesty, I'm going to be honest, I have been in a situation where I'm a side chick, right? And again, choice. I think making good decisions is very important, guys. Because once you choose, you're willing to live and suffer the consequences of your actions. So as the side chick, there are things you're willing to bear because you know you're the side chick, right? But it's still emotional, takes an emotional toll, knowing that there are things that you want to do that you cannot do because you're a side chick, right? And sometimes let's be honest and talk about this Nagwetu situation, happily ever after type of thing. You know what I mean? For me personally, my opinion is that it looks like these men were threatened by their side chicks to say, I'm going to leave you if you don't tell your wife, because I'm now tired of being on the back burner. I now want Vele to play wife. I'm tired of playing side girlfriend. I was okay with playing your girlfriend on the side and you were doing it very well, but now I want to play wife. So either you make me your wife or I'm going to tell your wife type of situation. It's an emotional cycle because yes, at first she was comfortable with I'm the back burner, we're never gonna get married and all of these things. And then she makes the ultimatum because emotions have arisen. I mean, now she wants entitlement. Now she wants to have a title. As when we're younger as women, not me at the time when I was a side chick, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't care. I really didn't care. Whether he was around or not, I didn't care because he was satisfying a need, and as long as that need was satisfied, I was okay. But as soon as I realized that I wanted something more for myself and my life, then it became a thing of, I can't do this back burner thing anymore. Either you want to be with me or you don't want to be with me, right? So very emotions came to play type of thing. At the time when I was side chick, I was playing my part very well. I stayed away. I came when I was told. You know what I mean? When the program changed, because I'm seeing, my friends are now leveling up. They also now, couple goals, hashtags are setting in. And I now want to hashtag couple goals too. And I can't hashtag couple goals with someone I'm supposed to be keeping secrets. I'm going to make ultimatums. I'm definitely going to come out and make ultimatums. So, yeah, I kind of see this Nagwetu situation being like you were cheating on your wife and your side chick threatens you and now you have to come clean. It's not necessarily the way you're supposed to go about being a polygamist. Now, I don't know much about polygamy. I'm not part of polygamy. My grandfather was a polygamist, and even in his situation, it didn't work out very well. But I would say that the people, when you listen to someone who knows the root of polygamy and he tells you how it came about to be, you know what I mean? You kind of see like the point of why people made the decision to join into these type of things, especially when he's saying that the husband didn't just go out sleeping with a girl and going out with the girl and then came to the house and say, this is now my wife, you have to accept it. No, we were maybe having a problem of having a son, right? We were consistently having females, and back then they thought, those things were on the female side, those problems were female. So they would say, you bring your sister. That's why it's my sister. Most of the time they would choose someone in your family, I think. And then they would say, she will help you birth the children. That's why they become your children, type of thing. But if it didn't work out for, what is this? Sarai. Is it Sarai? Sarai before he came Sarah. Is it Abram, and Abraham? Yeah. When Sarah started, before she had her own child, she was willing for Abraham to sleep with someone else for her to just have a baby, and she was willing to accept that baby as her own baby until she had her baby, right? This is the problem with women. We can there's emotions attached to things that we cannot keep. So I just learned from that, actually referring back to that. Even the Bible can tell you, the polygamous situation does not work. It does not work. Emotions are too much. So that's my point. Back then, the wife kind of was willing, and she would help choose. They say, this is what was explained to me, that she would help choose the female, because back then females would all go together to one place to do laundry and chores and stuff like that. So they knew each other as females. So they knew how they would handle each other and where they would handle each other. And they came up with the rules and boundaries for all these things. So there was so much love and respect in that space. The way Bomnagwetu are going about it right now is, in my opinion, in a very disrespectful manner. Who wants to be surprised by cameras in their house telling them that their husband has been cheating on them this whole time and now wants to make their side chick their wife? The disrespect in that. You've ruined your whole marriage. Being a guy who did that, you've ruined your whole marriage. Your wife will never trust you ever again. When I watched it the first time, I felt like the people who started this show, their intentions were in a good place. They wanted to educate South Africans and people who didn't know about polygamy, and they wanted to help men who wanted to go into those cultural perimeters. But you didn't go about it the right way. You were supposed to educate us first and tell us, Wuti, in our culture, this is what happens because of certain reasons of birth issues or inheritance issues and all of these things that you explained to us about the cycle in families and all of these and the growth of families and stuff like that. Not just boom in people's houses. Sure. And I was very surprised. My question was, what is the point to this? You're breaking up families rather than building them up. You're causing rifts rather than uniting us as South Africans. At least that's my opinion, because it's my vision as I see it. Maybe in other people's perspectives, now I've actually come to the conclusion, you cannot speak for other people because your experience is not another person's experience. When I'm praying for rain, my neighbor is praying for sunshine. Do you get what I mean? We're not all in need of the same things, and we're not all in want of the same thing. Maybe for someone else who watches the show, they're like, yeah, I'm getting a lot of education about this culture thing. I want to enter into it. Yeah, this is how I should go about entering into it. I should just get married and then all of a sudden tell my wife that, boom, here's another wife. Maybe to somebody else that looks and sounds fine, but in my head is one of the reasons why I would never get married. The disrespect, the shame that you're displaying. I just couldn't understand. But the Lord was showing Guti the reason for these bonds and unities was to sanctify the exclusivity of marriage, to say the bond of two people. But if we can be bonded as 50 people with one person, then we can't say that's sacred. Now, can we? But it's things that he had to teach me that I then realized, and then I changed my mind and I was like, Lord, if you lead me down the path of marriage, I wouldn't fight it. I would represent you in marriage the best way I possibly could, because that would be what you were calling me to do, And then I changed my mind. And my husband happened to be the person that I was most around during that time when I changed my mind. And then God said, I present you with this man. And then I chose him and said, I'm willing to go to war for this man. Because again, I could have chosen another person and said, nah, I want to be with someone else. I want to fight for someone else. It could happen that the person that I want to fight for doesn't want to fight for me. So I think it's a lot of things that you have to think about. But once you understand the path, the requirement, the grace that God is asking for in marriage, and you decide to enter into it, there's a lot of things that your mind sort of goes in happily willing to do. I'm happily willing to cook every day and make my husband makleferere because we didn't learn how to cook. At the time, we didn't want to get married. We didn't see the point. Auntie, I'm going to be eating the food. I'm going to be making myself food. He doesn't have to. Who will be worried about whether I can cook or not? That's the attitude I had. And now my husband is eating maklefere. No, but I cook very nice food, guys. But anyway, I think pray before you make the decision of getting married. Don't rush into marriage, and also don't shy away from marriage because you see what happens in other people's marriage. God has a different path for you to walk, even if it is in the marriage, just like He promised that He would be with me in my marriage. And I definitely feel Him guide me. I'm pretty sure if that you to make the choice that that is the path that you want to walk, He will be with you too. So that gives me a level of comfort in my marriage, as you say, and see. Right now, even though it's been less than a year, it's going really amazingly great. And I'm super excited to see what our future is. Even though I've kind of identified certain challenges that I think all marriages probably have to go through to sustain or to prove their strength. And I'm also very curious to see how me and my husband are going to handle it, especially when we are still putting our friendship very much first. Like, we treat each other like friends in the house. So sometimes I forget I'm married, especially after I lost my ring. But it is what it is. Guys, be blessed. Don't shy away from marriage. Ask God for His plan for your life, and He will lead you down the right path. Enjoy.